We continue in the 37th chapter, B'Masenu. We got a real great empowerment yesterday. The ultimate. The ultimate is that the fate of the world is dependent on me and dependent on you and every single one of us, which is amazing. Totally dependent on us. B'Masenu, totally B'Masenu, V'Masenu B'Meshach Zman HaGolus. Those are the words, powerful words. That it's dependent on our actions, our divine service throughout the times of exile. That we transform the darkness of this world into light and we bring it to the ultimate purpose of creation, which is a world of good, a world of God, a world where God's presence is palpable and real. That the consequence of that, and I say consequence means it's not it's a consequence of God's presence, and I hope that this is something that you see in your own lives, is the more God is present in your life and real in your life, the more the consequences of that will be a different kind of behavior, a different kind of feelings that you have, an outlook as a result. So the same thing as Mashiach. There'll be no more war, and that's something that we need in our prayers and our learning to those in Ukraine and beyond now that need the merit of our learning. So that is in our hands, that we can make that difference and truly change the world for good. So how do we do it? Through a mitzvah. We don't do it through politics. We don't do it through what's the word I'm looking for? Other, whatever, we'll speak about later. Okay, so we do it through the mitzvah. What's about the mitzvah? Because the fulfillment of a mitzvah is God's command and His will that is embodied in these mitzvahs. In other words, the vitality of the object that we use for a mitzvah, tefillin, money that we give to charity, the parchment that we write a mezuzah on, the esrog that we use on Sukkot. Its vitality is totally transparent to its source of the Ein Sof. So it is clothed in it, the will of God, in a non-concealed manner, no concealment. In this pen, there's a concealment of God's vitality, of its connection, identity. We don't identify this as, God giving vitality. But a mitzvah, we identify it as God's mitzvah, because its vitality is direct. No concealment of God's countenance. There's no separation, therefore. And therefore, when we do that mitzvah, we bring that light of God into the reality of this world in the object of the mitzvah. And furthermore, says the Alter Rebbe, we also bring it into our vitalizing animal soul and the limbs that are engaged in the mitzvah. This is a concept we've spoken about earlier, but he's bringing all ideas together now. That this is what we create. This is the reward of the mitzvah, is the mitzvah itself, is the connection, is the vitality that we bring into this world of the light of God that now counteracts the darkness of the klipa that this object was hitherto connected to, and me, my animal soul, and my body was also, getting its vitality from klipa. But in the moment of doing the mitzvah, So my animal soul slash vitalizing soul, and the limbs that are involved in that mitzvah, they ascend from a place of klipa into holiness, and to being bound up with God. Right? That's me. Furthermore, that's when I do an action-oriented mitzvah. But even when I'm studying Torah, for example, right now, or previously, prayed, the animal soul's power also is there. It's not in an action. It's in now that I am speaking. So the speaking is not coming from my godly soul, the capacity to speak. It's inspiring me, but it is not what's giving me the capacity of my teeth, my tongue, my larynx, my lips, and palate to be engaged in saying letters and make words and make sentences that hopefully make sense. Right? Moving your lips is considered like an action, because it takes the animal soul to give you that capacity to do it. So it's considered like an action. Therefore, the energy that's there is an energy of the animal soul that's now been converted, transformed into holiness, into the light of God that we've drawn down into our reality. Therefore, says the Alter Rebbe, it's an interesting idea, the more forceful one speaks with words of Torah and prayer, the more of the animal soul's energy is introduced and is enclosed in those words. Meaning you're converting more of the energy of your animal soul from klipa to holiness. As the verse says in Tehillim, all my bones shall declare. Meaning my whole being is involved, the energy of my body is completely involved in performing the mitzvah. That's why our sages say that if the Torah abides within all of the 248 limbs, it's preserved in memory. Otherwise, it's not preserved, and that's where forgetfulness comes from. Forgetfulness comes from because you're not totally engaged. You're partially engaged. So therefore, you forget. But when you're totally into it, there's a memory that the body actually even has, let alone, the brain actually has, right? So when we apply all of our strength into holiness in this manner, meaning into our Torah study like we're engaged in right now, or prayer, so that energy of the 248 limbs that are involved, it preserves the memory of what you're engaged in. And where does the lack of memory come from? From the klipa that causes one to forget and to be weakened.